Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Ayleen and Luna the MCat, and this is another daily dose of Medicine Walk. And for those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, this is Healing House Radio. So I hope everyone's doing real well. Right now, we're like in the first part of the first day of like a 3-day heat wave. And fortunately, living up in the mountains means it's a little bit less, but not by a whole lot. And, it's like, yeah, let's take, situation where people are trapped inside, where tempers are running short, and let's fire up the heat. So I hope everyone is doing well and taking care of themselves. And it's funny because I noticed that actually the majority of my views, like around 40 or so percent, a little over 40% of my views are in the US. So that means that the majority of my views are outside of the US. So, hi. Thank you so much for watching. And wherever you are, I hope to visit you one day. So if you want to post in the comments where you're listening from, that would be awesome. And, I'd love to get to know you and get to know the wonderful place where you live. And, well, at least for now, since nobody's traveling much of anywhere, especially here in the States, I look forward to the day when I can actually do some traveling and come to some of those places and meet up with some of you guys, because that would be so tremendously cool. It's that idea of being able to connect, and YouTube and other formats, and the internet in general, the fact that it allows us to be able to connect and create friendships and relationships over distances that back in my day were pretty much limited to who you could contact down the street, and or be willing to call long distance. Now the world is a button away. And that can be, that can have some really good consequences and not so good. And the idea of trolling and people bullying, cyberbullying. And, being bullied is horrible for anyone. And as someone who has been bullied in her life, and so many people have experiences where they've been bullied for, maybe for how they look, or for, their culture, or, their financial status, or, whatever. And it is heartbreaking that as a species we haven't moved beyond that. But bullying exists. So I wanted to talk a little bit about being an empath and dealing with bullying, because it's horrible under normal circumstances, and as an empath, to have somebody just deriding you and humiliating you, it goes into a whole new place, because as I've often said, if there's one person judging an empath, that automatically means there's two people judging an empath. And that's also why it's really important to be able to develop an ability to turn empathy down, so that we are not quite so open to, the judgment of others. Now, bullying can be, it can be anything from a stranger, and, being on the internet. I've been very fortunate that, I haven't had any sort of nasty or cruel comments. But then again, I'm really, really small, and probably there's a whole lot of people who don't even know I exist. So while I hope that will change one day, I do know that, there's always going to be people who are going to find fault. There's always going to be those who find a reason to say something bad. And that always really just threw me off. It's like, you're going to say something cruel to a total stranger that more likely than not, you would not say to the person if they were facing you. And that's probably part of the downside of, all right, hold on. There you go. That's part of the downside of the internet, is that there's that anonymity, and people say things, And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like they don't even think about that there's a human being on the other side of that statement. And, I've watched videos of people reacting to hate comments and things like that. And while usually in a lot of cases they try to turn them into a joke, I mean, it just, I cannot get my head wrapped around the idea that somebody would just lash out in such a horrible way to, just to hurt. And somebody has to be hurting a lot inside for them to just kind of unleash on someone. And that is actually a part. I have dealt with some bullies, and once you kind of get a hang of your empathy and you also realize you can transmit, when you reach that point, it's not quite so bad. Because one, you can find the most vulnerable thing inside that person. And I've had cases where somebody is being a bully, and all of a sudden, I figure out, okay, here, why don't you go up there? I figure out, what is their vulnerable point? Where is the chip and, that little crack in their armor? And when you get very good at empathy, you can be able to perceive that. And that is something that no bully wants to have turned around on them. You could also be able to say, connect with the part of that person that needs to be reached, because, there is everything and everyone carry light and shadow. And as empaths, we can perceive that. And, when, yes, and maybe that is tilted all in the wrong direction, it's still important to remember that people are human beings. And because we can sense both sides within a person, yeah, maybe there's a reason that person is bullying. Because I've also dealt with bullies where I could feel them being on the receiving end of it from a very young age. And as I said, empathy gives you a snapshot, but that's a snapshot that just kind of hangs around in there. And when I find it, it's like, oh, okay, this is somebody who grew up with it and that's all they know. Everything has a bigger picture. Everything has another side to it. And while, no, there is no justification, there's no excuse for bullying. There is usually a reason, though, because that's not a normal type of activity. It's not a normal thing, in my opinion. In my opinion, if somebody is doing that, there's a reason. No excuse. Let me make that very clear. There is no excuse for bullying. And depending on the path that person's life has taken, sometimes you can see, wow, I've spoken with people, and sometimes I will just sit and spend time with people who do that kind of behavior. And after a while, they end up starting to cry, and they start talking about, their fear and how they've been treated. And it's a place where it's like, okay, so do you really want to continue being this? Does this make you happy? And if not, can you see the possibility of finding another way of being able to have that pattern not be a part of your life? So, the idea that there is always a possibility that, and again, this is just my opinion, my feeling, my life experience. And yes, there are some extreme cases where people are just, basically evil. Yes, they may have a tiny, teeny, tiny, itsy bitsy sliver of light, but it's so overwhelmed by shadow that it's like, you know what, they're just going to have to figure this one out in their next lifetime, because this is just not going to work. And there are cases of people who have changed their lives, who realized that, it wasn't what they wanted to be. And I've known people personally who I would have never thought that they could have been different, that they could have turned themselves around, and they did. And they chose to, and they found a way to being a better person. And while they, they admit it, and the reason I'm touching my nose so much is that Luna's in shedding mode because the weather is warm, and so now I've got a nose full of Luna hair. But the idea that nothing is totally one thing or totally another. There are shades and nuances. And as we connect and as we learn to resonate more and to keep it in perspective, it's like the empathic part of you wants to just agree, wants to just resonate. But your intellect can override it and go, okay, what is it that my empathy is telling me? And how do I choose to use that information? Because empathy is a tool. It is something that allows you to gather information so you can make more informed decisions and more informed choices. And so that you are, that you have the capacity to see a much bigger picture. So if you are being bullied, first off, I'm sorry. You don't deserve that at all. There is no excuse for that. Get help. Let someone know. If you let someone know and it doesn't get anywhere, let someone else know. Talk to people. Talk to as many people as you can, because the last thing a bully wants to do is have light shed upon them. So make sure that you're getting support. You do not deserve this. You do not deserve to be treated less than the amazing, wonderful being that you are. And don't allow your empathy, because if you're empathic, don't allow your empathy to resonate with that negativity being projected at you, because then it becomes projected at yourself. So make sure that you are letting people know. Now, if you are doing bullying behavior and you don't know it, because there are honestly people out there who have no idea that they're as much of a bully as they are. They think, well, I'm just speaking my truth. Or, well, I'm just, I'm just telling it like it is. And if they can't deal with the truth, fine. A lot of people make up a lot of excuses, but ultimately they're bullies. And if someone, comes up to you and says, hey, stop bullying people, that can be a really hard thing to hear. And if someone has said that to you, or if somebody has accused you of being pushy, if someone has accused you of not listening, or of being overbearing, or they find other nice words that they can do, understand that that's what they're saying, is that you're bullying. And it does not make you a bad person. What it does is it means that you are using very limited tools. You can be a better person. And you can be able to walk in this world in a much more gentle way. But the first thing is you've got to acknowledge it. And if you have somebody who can read people, can resonate, and comes up to you and says, hey, we need to talk, because that's not okay. I don't care what how strongly you feel about your opinion. You don't run over people. If somebody comes to you and says that, take it to heart. Don't say, well, they don't know what they're talking about, or don't get defensive. You got caught. And that means that you have an opportunity to do better. So take the opportunity. Because at some point, as with every bully, there's always somebody bigger and badder and meaner than you are. And maybe they're the brother or the son or the daughter or the spouse or the sibling of someone who maybe you didn't treat quite so kindly. And they will come and adjust an attitude. So before it has to get that way, ultimately it's about the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's also about being calm within yourself, being settled enough within yourself to say, okay, I was maybe raised in an abusive situation. I was, treated badly, or I've been, I've been bullied. You don't have to become what it is that hurts you in order to be safe from it. And sometimes that's just what it comes down to. People feel that they have to become, because the paradigm that hurt them seems stronger than they are, and they want to be strong, so they resonate with that because of the illusion that, well, if that made me feel weak, then that meant it was strong, and I want to be strong, so I'm going to be like that. Don't. It is not strong. There isn't a bully anywhere who is strong. They're weak, and they're afraid. And they're so afraid they're going to get caught. They're so afraid that somebody is going to come over bigger and badder than they are and make them feel vulnerable again. So they push even harder. You don't have to. There's a better way. And if you calm yourself down and realize that you are connected to everything and everyone. Empaths, we just have a way of knowing it a lot more closely than most. We are able to actually feel it, but everybody has a little piece of that within them. So learn to resonate. Drop the wall that you've got between you and others. Now, that's kind of an academic thing to say, because I know that the people who watch these videos are, wonderful people, and you guys are great, and you're learning and you're growing. So if you do know somebody who has a tendency to be a bit pushy, why not invite them to see that? Because then that message is for them. And maybe it will help you in your discussions with people who are bullying. You don't have to go along with it just because you're empathic. But your empathy can allow you to shift that situation by holding up a mirror to that person. When you resonate with them, you can hold up that mirror and say, you know what? Here is what you're acting like. Take a look at it. Look at your reflection. Not so pretty, is it? So, be strong. Understand how strong you are, because you are very strong. So that's not a big thing for you to be. Do not allow anyone to take away anything from you, because, these guys are, the bullies are cowards. They really are. And they, you can be male, female, old, young. Anybody can have the potential to be a bully, but at the same time, anyone can also carry the potential within them to be someone who stands up for justice. And sometimes people aren't so irredeemable as we think, because if we look at, maybe they're doing what they do because they're wounded. And then there ain't nobody who's as good at trying to help heal an emotional wound or an energetic wound as an empath. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then please leave them in the comments section. And like I said, if you're from another country, say hello down there, and I will definitely say hello back. If you're listening in on Blog Talk Radio, please follow the link in the description to the YouTube page. And if you would like to connect with me, you can do so by following me on Twitter. You can connect with my Facebook group, Medicine Walk with Dr. Ayleen, and you can also reach me through my email address that is in the description. So, if you like the video, please press like, and please consider subscribing. It really is awesome to see the channel grow. So once again, thank you for joining me, and as always, I wish you balance, and I wish you blessings from my heart to yours. Love you, and see you next time. Bye.